Welcome to the Biz to Biz podcast, your number one source for all business news.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of B2B Vault, sponsored by Nationwide Payment Systems. I'm your host, Alan Kopelman, better known as the guy who's on B2B Vault. And today we have a special guest all the way from Colorado, Jeni Jonte, and she has a company called Eliminate Impossible. And we're going to talk about what's going on, how you can eliminate the impossible from your life. And, business people are always dealing with, different stuff. Salespeople are dealing with different stuff. Everybody's dealing with different things in their life from time to time. And we're here to talk about that and how to change your mindset maybe on what that you can accomplish the impossible. So
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, I'm Jeni, and so my company is Eliminate Impossible. I am a high performance mindset and prosperity coach. So, I do primarily work with business owners and entrepreneurs, as well as sales professionals, in helping them to just pivot, to change the results, and to accomplish things that they didn't think were possible before. So, I absolutely love it. And I think you mentioned as we were talking off air, my background is actually I was a physical therapist for almost 16 years before making the switch to this profession.
Yeah, and sometimes in life, your first thing that you're doing, first profession or first job that you're in is not the thing that you're going to do for your whole life sometimes. Like me, like I
Yep.
was telling you, I used to be a chef, and then I decided I didn't want to do that anymore, and I got into the payments business, and there were lots of naysayers. Oh, that's not going to work. And people told me I couldn't be a chef also. That also worked out for me. And I
hmm
was quite successful as a chef. And sometimes you just have to, my saying is no guts, no glory. So you have to go for it sometimes in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually brings me to something that I help people work through is that terror barrier. So, as you set big goals for yourself or you have these big visions or desires of what you want to accomplish, if you are not already programmed to do these things, then you're going to run into that terror barrier. And you have two choices at that point. You could either bounce right back off of it and go back to where you were before, where it's comfortable, but yet you're not getting the results that you want. Or you can push through that terror barrier into freedom and into this new life. So sometimes you just have to be, once you are aware that that's going to happen, I think that helps you to push through it to that next level.
No, definitely. It's scary when you go through a change in life, whether it's moving out of your house when you're a young, whatever, a young person and you're going off to college
hmm
or you're moving into your first apartment. You gotta just, you gotta wrap your head around it. As my dad used to say, you gotta pull up your bootstraps. That's what he used to tell me. He goes, you gotta pull up the bootstraps and get to work. You have to, sometimes I always say, write if you have a goal, write it down, you know.
Yes, yes.
And
I know. See, I have my goal card right here. I keep it right next to me. So I always look at it and remind myself constantly of where it is that I'm going. I think that also it keeps, if you keep that in mind all the time and you know where you're going, it's a lot easier to push through these fears as they come up because you know it's just part of the growth and part of getting to that goal. But if you don't have that goal and if you haven't written it down, like you've probably come across many people who don't have a goal written down or maybe don't even have a clear goal of where it is that they're going. So I think that's one of the most important first steps.
oh, definitely. Like when I talk to salespeople, I go, okay, what's the goal you're trying to reach? Like you want to reach an income goal, right?
hmm
So what do you have to do? What's the number? And
hmm
I tell them, pick the first number is this is going to pay all my bills. And the next number is the next step. And the third number is where you really want to be. And you
Yes.
have to have the hunger to get there. I mean, I remember when I first started doing credit card processing and I was just working for somebody and I had to go out and make sales. I was
Mm-mm.
sitting in my car, sweating bullets, thinking about how am I going to walk into this business and make a sale and talk to these people. I must be out of my mind, right? And I sat down and I just looked at, said to myself, you've got to do this. You got two
Mm-hmm.
little kids and
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to go back into the kitchen and sweat and work 7 days a week or whatever, 80
Right.
hours a week like a crazy person.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So you're gonna have to do this. And I did it. And you have to sometimes you got to step outside of your comfort zone, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
To accomplish what you need to accomplish.
Yes. And I might butcher this quote a little bit, but I was just reading this yesterday. In order to accomplish something you've never accomplished, you have to do something you've never done. So you have to grow, you have to stretch yourself, you have to do things that might not feel great at the moment, but it's a matter of what do you want? Do you want to be comfortable in the process or do you want to be comfortable with the results? So many people would rather give things up and live in a means that like, oh, it's okay, I can handle not going on those vacations. I can handle that if it means I don't have to get uncomfortable right now, but you need to be able to push yourself through that discomfort. So, and the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? Like I never thought that I could even sit here and talk to somebody on a camera before. And then now I lost track of how many different podcasts I've been on and how much speaking I've done. But the shy, quiet Jenny in the past would have never done this.
Yeah, when I first started to think about doing podcasts, I said, "Oh, I want to do
Hmm.
a podcast." And when I started 3 years ago, it was it was really hard to find all the tools that I needed. Now,
Hmm.
if someone wants to create a podcast, they can do it. They can find what they need. They can find the camera, the mics, the lights, the put up a cool neon sign. You don't
It's
have to
very
spend
cool.
thousands and thousands of dollars to do it.
Hmm.
But when I started, it wasn't that easy. There wasn't all this software and AI stuff
Hmm.
and all that. And I remember listening to this guy, Noah Kagan, who started a company called AppSumo, and it's a company that sells software for
Okay.
startup companies on their website. And he said, "Oh, if you want to start a podcast, you can write to me why you want to start a podcast, and he's going to give me whatever." He gave me like $900 and suggested the
Oh.
equipment. So I
Uh-huh.
wrote
Uh-huh.
to him, and I guess I was one of the winners that got to win and I
Nice. That
still
is
have the
so
first.
cool.
Yes, I still have the first camera and the first microphone that I recorded the podcast with. And he said, you got to commit to do 100 podcasts. And he said, the first in the beginning, it's just all going to suck. And it did. They were horrible. Well, they weren't good, was not that good. And you just gotta, you have to persevere and you just gotta work through it. And you gotta say, this is what I
Hmm.
want to do. This is what I wanted to do. And I've done over 300 episodes and I get interviewed on podcasts all the time.
Yes,
And I enjoy it. And I
that's
remember the
right. But
first
see, you
time
had to get through that. You had to get through that first part, that discomfort at first.
right, you got to get over that discomfort and you just got to go for it. Somebody else
Hmm.
told me, "Oh, you're doing the podcast. You're dressed too casual. You've got to, you need to wear a suit and tie." I'm like, no one wants to listen to a guy with a suit and tie on. I mean, even with, I'll talk to founders of companies and, they're a lot younger than I am. And they'll
Mm.
be, they'll be dressed in t-shirts and shorts and whatever. I mean, just
Yeah,
people
I think
are,
the younger culture doesn't really get dressed up for much anymore, but I think that depends too on like just your image and who you want to portray as, right? So how do you want to show up? And if you want to show up as a casual, comfortable, like making it just a nice conversation between two people, then wear whatever you like, right?
yeah, I think that you have to be relatable
Hmm.
in whatever that you're trying to present when you talk to people. Be relatable, be approachable, not to be this like person that, oh, I can't. I've had people call me on the phone and they'll call the office and I'll answer and they'll be like, "Oh, you answer the phone?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's the what?" They're like shocked. Like I'm not like not a celebrity. No one's asking for my autograph. So
Hmm. Well, I
it's
don't know. I
okay.
think I'd love your autograph if you want to send it to me after.
Okay. I'll send you a swag bag.
Oh,
I'll
that
sign
sounds
something
great.
for you.
That's awesome.
No, you
Yeah, so
have
you
to.
never got, go ahead.
No, no, I'm saying you have to do that. Step out of you have to when you want to if you want to and this is one thing I tell everybody. I told this to
Hmm.
somebody one time. I said, "You want to make more money?" They said, "Yes." I said, "You're going to have to get uncomfortable." That's it.
Yes.
There's
And then
no way around it.
no. And I love the saying, like, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, just get used to the fact that things are going to feel awkward. They're going to feel uncomfortable at first. But if you have, like, you mentioned some of your why before as well, with you have the two daughters, you have a family that you need to support. So you have to have a why behind your goal. So you make this financial goal, but you have to say, what is that money for, right? So if you've already allocated in your mind why you want that big financial goal, what it's going to do and what the purpose is behind it, and so much is going to go to each thing, then you say, okay, then this has to happen, right? So now you have a huge why, whatever that may be for you, and that is going to help pushing you forward when those moments of discomfort come in.
Yeah, that's what the goal, what is the goal? The end goal.
Hmm.
And you do that. It's like I have a son and a daughter. So I told my son
Hmm.
he was working in a job. He goes, I love my job. And he was like the top sales guy, but they're not promoting him to be a manager. I said,
Hmm.
they're not going to make you a manager. You need to go to a different company. So he found
Hmm.
another job and now he's went to work for them. They started to promote him through the ranks and now he's a general manager of a large retail store. And,
Nice.
my daughter 8 years ago called, it was probably like nine, I don't know, longer than that, 12 years ago, called me on the phone, says, Dad, I don't want to do chemistry. I want to be a meteorologist. I said, like on TV? And she goes, Yeah. I said, Well, then
Oh,
march
okay.
down to the office and go ask them what you have to do. So she called me back to tell me the answer. And I go, No, go back in there and asked them, said there must be a meteorologist here at the college. This is a big school,
Uh-huh.
University of Florida.
Hmm.
And they sent her to see the meteorologist, and she graduated. She got her master's degree after that. She's worked at the same TV station in Iowa for 8 years. And last
Hmm.
year they made her the chief meteorologist.
So
So
now
she
she gets to be the person on camera with the,
oh, she was always on camera.
oh, okay.
But now
That's awesome.
she's the boss of the whole thing. So
That
but
is
that's
so
what you have to
cool.
do. I said to her, I said, You're going to be on TV? Like, really? Like, and she's on TV every morning. She gets up at like 3, 4 in the morning. She's a
Mm,
hard worker. She's in
hmm.
there and she does her 3 hours of TV. And
That is so cool. But I love that. So she made that decision that that was what she wanted to do, and she didn't shy away. So she
no,
figured
she
out,
tried.
well, what do I have to do to make this happen? And then just, and went for it.
Yeah, they made this video of her called The First Freshman. And you saw the
Mm.
first, it reminds me of my first podcast, how bad they were. When I saw her on TV, how bad it was. And to the
Hmm.
end. And then, she was polished, but I mean, not like she is today. I mean, today she's just
Hmm.
boom, 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 with
Yeah.
doing her thing.
Yeah,
Anything can
that is so
happen.
cool.
And no, but
Well,
that's what
absolutely. See, everything is possible. That's what I always say. Everything is possible. We are only limited by the limitations that we put on ourselves with our own thinking, the own parameters. We put ourselves into a box sometimes without even realizing it.
yeah, you don't have to be in a box.
Mm-mm. Sorry.
That's
You're
okay.
making me want my water too.
I went to Vegas for my birthday, came back, I got a little cold and I'm just finishing it up.
Hmm.
I got the little
Yes.
aftermath.
Yeah.
But no, you have to set your eye on the prize. That's the whole thing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, absolutely. And to not, you know, I feel like sometimes we see ourselves as a certain person, right? So even I went through this when I was trying to change careers from a physical therapist into coaching. I didn't realize just how much I had wrapped my own identity of who I was as being a physical therapist, right? I mean, every time you meet somebody, what's the first thing that they say? Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a physical therapist. And that was just, and once I started to try to transition that, I was like, oh, well, now I need to and I feel like I have to explain a little bit more, when it comes to coaching, because people don't always understand what that is. They're like, "Oh, a life coach." I'm like, "No, no, it's different." But it took me quite a while, and I spent a lot of time trying to do both because I just couldn't completely let go of that idea of that I was a physical therapist. I had to like hold on to it. And it wasn't until I finally let that go and fully stepped into this role that then things started to flourish and take off a lot more.
yeah, I think anybody, today we saw like during COVID, right? People were out of
Hmm.
their normal job and then they had
Hmm.
to figure out like, oh, I can't go to this job because the restaurant's closed or the hair salon
Hmm.
is closed. And what am I going to do? And a lot of
Hmm.
people, went back to school or started just going for other jobs and changed their
Hmm.
life. And,
Yeah.
it really adversely affected the restaurant business because it took all these people who were waiters and waitresses and bartenders, and all of a sudden,
Hmm.
they figured out, well, there's easier ways to make money than to
Yes.
do all that or whatever they were doing.
Hmm.
Today we have a whole slew of people that are, working at home, that are
Hmm.
freelancing, that are, started businesses. I mean, we saw an explosion of entrepreneurship.
Hmm. Yeah, which I think is really exciting personally. But yes, we do still need, people in the service industries, which is very hard. But just the immense opportunity that is available to us now that was not available even just 10 years ago is pretty incredible. So all of these things that we can do now with this stuff at our fingertips and to be able to work from home and to be able to just, create your own schedule and be flexible and talk to people all over the world. I mean, most of the people I talked to this week have been in the Southern Hemisphere. So, and it's just so cool to get to meet these people and have wonderful conversations where I would have never been able to do that before.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I remember I started selling a software product probably about over 10 years ago. And
Hmm.
the person who was showing me the software, they're showing it to me on the computer, with there was no Zoom, it was something else at the time.
Hmm.
And they're like, "Well, this is how you're going to demonstrate the software to people." And I remember the first person I said, "Well, let me send you a link, click on it, and I'm going to show you this software." The guy thought I was crazy, and he bought it. And he's like, "Wow, that's insane." And I was like, "Yeah." I remember I had to go to a company once, and I thought I was going there to do a demo for like two people. And they brought me into this huge conference room, and there were like 40 people in there. And I had
Mm.
to demo this thing in front of 40 people up on a big
Wow.
screen. And, you just
Yeah.
gotta, I mean, I was sitting there going, oh, this is like really kind of, I wasn't expecting this, but I'll do it,
Hmm.
you know? But that's,
Yeah.
this is
Very different than how you can do it now.
right. I mean, no, I'm just saying, like, was just really new at doing it. So I wasn't
Hmm.
really,
Hmm.
was like, oh, I'm going to get in front of this group. I mean, I've talked in front of groups before, so,
Hmm.
but it's interesting, here we record this, right? And then hundreds
Yes.
of people go and, listen on their phone, on Spotify or Apple, and then they're watching on YouTube and they're learning something. So what
Hmm.
would be three pieces of advice or more that you would give people that are watching this now, that like how you can help them or how they can help themselves or however you want to put that.
Sure. And it's always hard to narrow it down to just a couple of things because it's so multifaceted. But I would say the first thing is that what we talked about before when it comes to goals, if you do not already have a very specific, big, what I call a C-type goal, which sounds like the bigger goal you were talking about, if you don't already have that and have it written down, so you've got to have it written down. It's got to be specific and put a time to it. If you haven't done that yet, that's probably one of the most important things that you can do. And then the second thing is to really start evaluate your belief system. Because if you don't believe, if you set this goal, but your belief system is not and caught up to it, if you don't believe that you can actually achieve this goal, or you don't believe that you're worthy, or whatever it might be. So if you haven't evaluated your beliefs before, I highly recommend it. It's so crucial because we can never like perform outside of what we believe it to be possible. And then also to start to look at your self-image because that's another area you just can't outperform your self-image. So if you do not see yourself as a person who is earning, X amount, say $100,000 a month, then you will never earn that much. So if you haven't read the book Psycho-Cybernetics before, which I'm sure I'm assuming most of your audience has, but if they have not yet, I highly recommend that book. So it's really incredible and it really breaks down into a lot of great detail the importance of your self-image.
Okay, that's interesting. What other books do you recommend?
Oh, I mean, well, there's always, I see, I have my copy right here. Think and Grow Rich, of course. So I love that one. And then any Neville Goddard work. So I don't know if you've read any of his before, but I really enjoy his. It's kind of a deeper look at things, and it might not, it might take a few reads to really start to get it, but I really like Neville Goddard as well.
Okay. Well, you'll have to send me some links to the book so
Yeah, absolutely.
we can put it in the notes of the podcast.
Hmm.
Always good for people to, learn something and, you always have to, I always say like you have to be a lifetime learner, right?
Absolutely.
That's like
Yes.
one of the things. Like I learn something every day. Like when I'm
Hmm.
doing a podcast, I'm learning from you. Probably have to pick up a couple of books. And,
Yeah.
like it's funny, like I'll tell people like one of my favorite books, it's like a really quick read is Who Moved the Cheese?
I love that book.
And it's like
Yes.
and I tell people, I go, when I first started in this business, me and my business partner Dave got a phone call, and this guy's like, "Oh, we want you to come to Baltimore, Maryland, and learn about this
Hmm.
our company, and you guys can resell for become resellers for us, blah blah blah." So we go there, and the first day, the guy's handing everybody the Who Moved the Cheese book, and then he did a little class on it the next day,
Hmm.
and that's one of the most important lessons that I learned is that. And now, like we see this accelerate. I mean, that was in 2001, right? So
Hmm.
now we're in 2024, but I'll just place myself in like 2020. When you look at 2020 and you look at to
Hmm.
2024 and you look at technology, right? In that
Yes.
4 year span, right?
Hmm.
Technology is moving at the most rapid pace that I've seen in my entire lifespan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hmm.
we're just seeing, especially with AI. I mean,
Hmm.
every day there's something new going on and
Hmm.
cryptocurrency and all these different things. So there's so many opportunities out there for people to do things, you know,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's just this acceleration. So like, who moved the cheese? You have to think about, like I used to think about it once or twice a year. Now
Yeah.
I think about it like monthly. I'm like, well, where did
Hmm.
it, here's this disruption going on in
Hmm.
business. How are we going to react to this disruption or that disruption? How are we going to react to these disruptions? And
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and it just but that too, right? Like reacting versus responding and understanding like yes, so things are changing and then how can I change along with it to make sure that I don't get left behind, and so that I can utilize these new things to make my life even easier. So that's kind of, I think, well, at least what I've seen so far in the push with AI. I haven't dove a lot into it yet myself. I know I need to start. But I know that that's kind of the idea behind it, right? To help make life easier for business owners. So, but how is that going to happen? And there's a lot of learning to be done in these new areas. Um, you know what I was going to say too? I forgot about this book because it's for free on my site, is You Were Born Rich by Bob Proctor. So he's my mentor and who I learn everything from. So that's a wonderful book too to help start changing the way that you're thinking about things.
Yeah, it's always good. It's always good to reflect and think about like, okay, this is what, you can't just say like, oh, I'm stuck in this one spot. You have to
Hmm.
like see like, okay, where do you want to go? You know? And it's
Yes.
like I tell people like, especially when it comes to sales, I like to talk about sales a lot, but
Hmm.
especially when it comes to sales, sales is like the best job. You can set your own
Hmm.
hours if you're 1099, but you have to be super self-motivated,
Hmm.
versus if you're just an employee. If you're an employee, yeah,
Yeah.
you have to be motivated too, but when you're earning on your own, you have to really
Right.
motivate yourself to do what you need to do.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And, sales is a place that I feel like it's very easy to have these, negative like paradigms and self-image around sales without even being aware of it. Like I could tell you my first job in sales was for Kirby Vacuums, if you've heard of that. So trying to
yes.
go door to door selling vacuums when I was in college, and we'll just say I didn't make a whole lot because I did not see myself as a salesperson, right? It was a summer job. I was trying to make some money and I just wasn't doing very well. And then I also tried Mary Kay and, they made you buy like tons of product, which I still had 20 years later. And I was like, why
Uh-oh.
do I have this? So clearly, so from these experiences, I had these ideas that I'm not good at sales. I'm just not a good salesperson. And, through listening to my parents and other people growing up, and they talk about the sleazy salesman, and they just, all these negative ideas were coming to me about being in sales and sales professionals, and I didn't understand it, right? So it wasn't until I started to sit down and look at that and what that really means that I understood that these were the paradigms that had been formed for me around sales and around who I was and my ability to sell. And so if you start to look at that, if you're not performing the way that you want to, so I love working with sales professionals because I think you can make some really huge leaps by making these changes inside. And as you said, it really is up to you, right? You are the one who's creating the revenue and the income. So you've got to be on your best and you've got to have all of these pieces in place, or you're probably not going to get to those higher levels.
Yeah, and one thing is, I tell every person, if you're going to start a business,
Hmm.
you're going to be a salesperson.
Yeah.
You might not
Yeah.
like it, but you're going to have to make a sale because, I had somebody come to me once and they're like, "Oh, I want to get into your business." So I said, "Well, what are you going to do? You're going to go out and start selling?" They're like, "No, I'm going to hire people. They're going to go sell." I said, "Well, when they ask you a question about how to sell it, how are you going to tell them what to do?"
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta, if you want to, same thing, like, you're coaching people
Hmm.
and somebody comes to you, you have to convince them you're the one they should hire.
Yep, absolutely. And when you start to think about it, though, even if you're not in like a sales job, you're selling all the time. Right? So
Yeah.
even when I was working as a physical therapist, I was selling my patient on the importance of them to do their exercises that I give them at home or to come to therapy or whatever it is. Like you're always selling on something, right?
Yeah.
So when you start to change that idea around what it actually means, then it's like, oh, it's fun. And there's no ceiling to it. There's
Right.
you no limit to the possibilities of what you could do. So it's actually a wonderful, great profession to be in. But see, it's just that it has this negative connotation sometimes that we just have to flip and think around differently.
Well, that's why it's important to make sure like you're presenting yourself, you're you're being forthright in what you're selling, and
Mm-hmm.
you're doing what you're supposed, being ethical, you
Yeah,
know,
yes.
and you're, ethical in what you're doing. That's what it always comes down to. I mean, is doing the right thing, because it's karma. Karma can come back, right? And
Oh,
get you.
100%. Yes. It whatever you put out, you're going to get back one way or another. So
Yeah,
if you
I look at it that way too. Like we do a
hmm
lot. We get, I personally, make, do charity donations and things, and we
hmm
donate as a company also. And it's important to do those things to give back to the community because we don't
hmm
want to just take, 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 take. We have to
right.
give back, to the community. And, part of my giving back is, doing the podcast, and
hmm
I'm giving back to people, so they can learn things. And
hmm
also, I write articles in a magazine. It's the same things, giving back to the payments community because it's a payments magazine.
hmm
So it's important, to do those type of things, for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know about you, but I always just feel better. I love giving so much more than receiving, which actually is something that I had to work through for my business. I'm like, I'll give you free stuff all day long and then never ask for the money, you know? So
Oh, that's not good. You gotta get paid.
so you need a combination of the two. But yes, I also have, my charities that I love to give to. And for me, it's all around, or not all, but primarily around human trafficking, because that's just something that has, struck me hard. And I just feel like it's really important to work on. So that's where I love to try to make an impact in the most way that I can.
That's definitely like something it's out of control right now.
It is. Yeah.
Hopefully that improves.
hmm
So if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to find you, Jenny?
Yeah, so of course I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. The website bringonpossible.com is going to have whatever events are going on now, as well as, excuse me, see, it is so dry here in Colorado, um, as well as that free book that you can get from Bob Proctor, and then it has links to some of my other stuff as well.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate you being the guest on the podcast today. Thank you for being with us on B2B Vault. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or on LinkedIn. And hopefully you got something out of this. And we'll post the links to some of the books that Jenny was talking about today and her website. And everybody enjoy your day. Thank you for listening to B2B Vault. Carpe
Awesome.
diem. Peace out. Seize the
Thank you.
day.